Over the last year, we learned how companies weathered the storm and how the best did it. Today, we want to focus on 3 key insights we've learned over the last year. The first insight is that the most resilient companies were those who embraced technology to transform their business processes. Let's face it, digital transformation is a pretty overused term these days. And some people tend to call every IT project a digital transformation. But migrating an IT landscape to a cloud infrastructure alone doesn't change a single business process. In reality, the COVID-19 crisis has underscored the urgent need for every company to become an intelligent enterprise. So what do we mean when we talk about the key characteristics of an intelligent enterprise? First and foremost, to have the courage to leave traditional business models behind and radically change how your business runs. Intelligent enterprises are enabled by integrated, digitized, agile business processes, powered by data and with embedded AI. To give you a real-life example, let's have a look at Breaks, a B2B food delivery services catering to the food service sector in the UK. Let's move on to insight number 2. No business does business alone. We win together as a community. One intelligent enterprise alone can already achieve great things. But we live in an interconnected world. I've talked to many CEOs, and it became clear. Many of the issues companies faced during the pandemic came from their reliance on global supply chains. Just take the recent semiconductor shortage as one example. First, with the outbreak of the pandemic, companies reduced their semiconductor orders to adjust to lower market demand. Now, the demand for semiconductor orders has exploded. And the very same companies are now facing severe production shortages as suppliers and manufacturers didn't have enough lead time to ramp up a production again. And this is just one of many examples. In fact, over 75% of all companies reported supply chain disruptions as a result of COVID. When we look at how enterprises run today, many still manage the complex relationships between suppliers and buyers, logistic providers, and manufacturers as static one-to-one connections. COVID showed us just how crucial it is to have real-time transparency across your entire supply chain. There is, by the way, a clear parallel with our daily lives using social networks, such as Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. The value comes from the network and the millions of interconnections it facilitates in real time. But nobody has done this yet for businesses doing business together. Today, we are announcing the next part of our strategy to create the world's largest and most comprehensive business network. We believe that industries will be revolutionized when businesses turn into communities. We want to connect every company across your entire supply chain. and in doing so, provide you with immense value from being a member of this community. Buyers, multi-tiered suppliers, logistic providers, manufacturers, and banks will be able to respond to any disruptions real-time through their connections in the network. This may sound like a bold vision, and it is. But let's not forget, we already won the world's largest supplier network with more than 5.5 million connected enterprises. And because our applications run supply chains across every industry, we have the most relevant data and expertise. Later on, we will show you how game-changing the network will be. The third insight is the most important one for the future of our planet and our families. We must act now on sustainability with the goal of zero emissions, zero waste, and zero inequality. When we look at the news during the pandemic, one could easily think that things improved during 2020 with the massive reduction in carbon emissions. But the reality is far more complex than that. At a macro level, carbon emissions this year are set for the second biggest increase in history. Individual product development is also not straightforward. Just take one example, the electric car. Nobody yet fully understands the supply chain emissions impact of an electric car over its complete life cycle. This is the decade we must act. It's time to build sustainability into the fabric of how we do business. It's time to make sustainability a standard dimension of corporate management, just like productivity or growth. But you can't act on what you can't measure. As part of this commitment, SAP will provide standard reporting and analytics on all sustainability metrics of the World Economic Forum, with the intention to help establish them as a global standard. And what's exciting? Part of the solutions is in our hands. Given the significance of global supply chains in tackling sustainability, the SAP community truly has the power to protect our planet and create a future our children want to be part of. We have created an entirely new sustainability portfolio to help you drive sustainable practices, not only inside your organization, but across your entire value chain. We will make carbon footprint tracking available in the business network so that you can go to true net zero. We will let you turn your circular economy vision into reality. We will jointly build networks with you that champion diversity, inclusion, and human rights. You will hear from Allbirds in a few minutes, just one of many exciting examples. There is so much opportunity here, and we worked hard to make these ideas a reality for you, our dear customers. Together with you, we can reinvent how businesses run by holistically transforming every enterprise into an intelligent enterprise. We can reinvent how industries run by connecting intelligent enterprises into an industry-wide business networks. And we can even reinvent how the world runs, making profitability sustainable and sustainability profitable. And this will ultimately help us to turn our mission into a reality, to help the world run better and improve people's lives.
Today, I'm thrilled to have a conversation with Hasso Plattner, the founder and chairman of SAP. And today, our conversation will center on the technology advances bringing together people, processes, systems, and data to create transformational outcomes. So, Hasso, business process intelligence, what's your take on this area?
Oh, this is around for many years. When we became successful in the 90s and built R3, we were asked to have a documentation for the system, and we had different modeling approaches. We did one for the technology part of the system with the modeling system by Professor Wendt. He was a professor in Kaiserslautern, nearby our headquarters, and I studied at his chair in Karlsruhe. So his modeling tool, FMC, was very successful for modeling the functions of our basis system. Was so successful that with the description of the models and some text, IBM was able to transfer our system, which was built on Unix, to the AS400 within 6 months with one SAP engineer. One of the best engineering projects I have ever seen. Didn't work for business processes. So for business processes, we did something else with Professor Scheer from the University of Saarbrücken. It was called event-driven process chains. We got into this, and when we built the product by design, a new product from scratch, we completely modeled it with this modeling technique. Helpful to look at it, helpful in decision-making, not helpful when the system was running because it was dead. Just presentation, documentation. We never made it to make these documents active.
Got it.
So that is the long story till basically, not today, but the recent 2 years. We still have the models in S4HANA. We acquired and then spun off again, but work with the company Qualtrics to get back the feeling and the impressions and recommendations and probably the negative comments from our users and digest them. So we have a active input component. And recently we acquired a process management company, Signavio. We will talk about this later, that we can have active models. We develop the models out of the data streams itself, and therefore they are the real models of what is happening in the system. And with the static models, what the system could do, should do, and what's really happening, and the feedback from the users, we believe that we have a different world for the many thousand companies which will move now from the on-premise systems, the R3 type systems, they're called ECC 6.0, to the S4HANA cloud basis. And there is a huge process transformation possible. We should not carry forward the processes we developed together with the customers 2010, 5 years ago, without looking at them and analyzing them. There are still a few questions which have to be worked out. Where do we start? Do we analyze the existing customer system first? Or do we transfer the data into an S4 system and let it run simulation there and then analyze that? I'm in favor of the latter one, but that implies that we can very easily take the data over into S4HANA, not only the configuration data, the master data, but also the transactional data, and then run the analysis. I think this is the way to go, but the consulting teams in SAP and the RISE teams transfer the existing on-prem customers to the cloud. They have to make this decision, so I'm only a bystander. But what we saw is for the first time, we can build models automatically by the system and models as they're used.
Got it.
And not our ideal set of business processes we sell to the customer. And then the consulting teams are working hard to achieve that. And the second was that we can monitor them, that we can, once we have the models, when we see how the data flows in reality and where the interaction points are with the users, we have a quantified version of the analysis of business processes. That's how we think it is. And when I did consulting in the 70s and 80s, then with the start of the R3 development, I did not go to customers anymore. I always went to the office spaces and ask users whether I could stand behind them for a while and look how they work, to get an impression exactly for both. How does the flow work and how is their emotional reaction? When somebody slams the hand or explicit shrieking or whatever happens, things we never thought are this impactful in development. When we went for, I think, 20 languages simultaneously, it's many more today. When we were not complete in the translation, and we thought if the English text is not there, we come with a German text. People even in Canada flipped out. They could not understand what we are doing. Much better solution would have been to take then a French text because they all speak French. So we didn't think about this enough. So we get now this feedback not by monitoring the people, because it's very difficult to do. Customers are all over the world. We can do this now with programs automatically. So both the X component with the help of Qualtrics and the process component with the help of the SAP Business Process Intelligence and the newly acquired Signavio software. So we have now a whole concert of functions with which we can analyze a running system and then start the consulting. Business processes to get the feedback, to play with them, to change them, that we have a better chance to move forward faster. And SAP is not a passive bystander. SAP the development can also monitor and see what is missing and make the changes in the software.
Right.
And now comes probably the next biggest topic here, and this is SaaS. We can make the changes basically on the fly. So the feedback loop is much faster.
Right. Well, I think that's why the humans would resist the change so much, because it used to be where once you picked it, you were stuck with it. And so there was so much, it was so important to get it exactly how they wanted. But now, you said it's learning, it's agile. We can actually adapt it, and it doesn't have to be the same structure for years and years.
That's a very important point, the fear. If we don't get it done, we will never get it done.
Right.
If only now we have a handle on the supplier, on the manufacturer of the software in the installation. If we don't poke SAP now, we will never get it.
And we'll be stuck with this forever, right?
And we're stuck with this forever. I hope the whole interaction between the customer, between our service organization, partners, and, very important for me, our own development organization.
Right.
That development can see in a quantitative way where we have a bottleneck, where we have a manual interaction, which probably is not necessary. We could have a bot there answering 95% of the questions or moving the process forward, not just as an emotional discussion with a winner and a loser, but based on data. And then the feedback from the users, because they see it also differently. There's one thing in the system, in the software system, and there's another thing, how the users see this. Here comes the whole UI story into play. Is that good enough? Is that convenient enough? Or is that, like it sometimes is a hassle?
It's an emotional topic.
It's an emotional topic, and we are responsible, the manufacturer, SAP, is responsible for the most effective implementation of the system with regards to the functionality we bring to the table and how we implement it.
Yep, agreed. And I like that you can, in the capabilities now, you learn what it's actually doing, and then you create this digital twin where you can actually run the analysis on it and get it smarter and smarter. And then with the cloud delivery, of course, you can actually take and actually adjust that real time. So again, back to that living idea of you don't have to be so fearful when you know you can learn and adapt from it as well.
In the days when I did installations, we were very fast. We had only a few days, probably 20 days, 30 days of consulting, and a customer went productive with a larger system. The systems are so much bigger today. It takes so much more time. All the external systems which have to feed in, and other systems which have to be fed by the SAP ERP system. So it takes much more time. And from start of the project to it's running productively, an on-prem installation could easily reach 1.5 years. And now you can understand the users, how eager they are to get their stuff in, at least committed by SAP. And then it goes on and they have amendments and they have additional ideas. With the rapid implementation in the cloud, even in a test system, we have a different situation. First of all, the customer sits on the latest software. Okay, when we do a new installation on-prem, it's the same, but it sits on the latest software, but 14 days later, it starts already to be updated.
Right.
So this permanent update helps when we say, yeah, this is in the next release, probably in 3 months, you will see this. And once they develop the trust, and now this whole circle starts, they can give input, we measure, we do a prototype, we confirm, and 3 months later, it is in the system already. So the discussion, this has to be in the standard. We don't want to pay for maintenance forever, can be eased and become an engineering project and not a sales and marketing fight.
And then the updates too, because in the cloud they're smaller updates. They're not big, monolithic, and that's the other thing of people who've grown fearful of that it's so big and so disruptive. And you're like, in the cloud, it just comes in small increments, so it doesn't have the same disruptive nature to it.
Yeah, and we have a different. It's not that we do nothing on-prem, but we have a different deployment strategy. We do it for a small number of customers, 10. See, is there any, like a little bit like the pharma companies when they do...
clinical trials.
Clinical trials, exactly. And then we do 100 and then probably 1,000 and then the rest. But we do this all with a rapid frequency. See, the whole notion of the cloud systems is such a gigantic improvement if we do it right. And that is the success you see at the companies who embarked on this road. And I'm proud that SAP, despite we were an early bird, but we failed. We had a project together with Intel. This is forgotten now. And we had, I think, 15 companies already up in the cloud, mainly smaller companies and in the Bay Area. And it was too expensive. So partner Intel said, no, that's we cannot make money here. So we bail out. And this set us back. Then we developed by design. And now we have basically rewritten the whole major SAP system, rewritten for the cloud. And it is now finally, I see the hockey stick in new customers. It took us some while. The rewrite was much longer than I thought. But now we can harvest what we seeded in the last 5 years. We have some great reports about companies now deploying the new functionality, refurbished business processes. We still do the same thing. Sometimes I ask myself, do we still do the same what we did in the 70s? In principle, yes. In detail, it's completely different. And the speed with which we improve in the cloud is now really, that this is impressive, since we are, for 90%, we are done with the rewriting and transformation. We have some industry issues still to solve, but in general, we can consider it done. And now we see how we improve.